Mm.
Um, Hi George.
Hey, hi, Michael.
Thank you for doing this. This is our first, I'm trying to start like a Substack video thing or podcast. So you're like my first guest.
Mm, okay.
Um,
Hmm. I'm not hip to the podcast world,
y-
but
that makes you perfect. That
yeah,
makes
right.
it. Um, so yeah, I mean, we're doing our season this year, like we're doing The Mountaintop right now by
Right.
Katori Hall.
Hmm.
And in general, the season is sort of focused on interrogating the notion of freedom right now in America. And you've been on my mind for many reasons, but one is I've wanted to talk to you about your story. I think if I remember correctly, meeting Martin briefly, and then also marching with him. And you were helping us on Angels in America, and I remember you were cleaning the stage, and I was watching you clean the stage, and I was like, "It's so crazy! This guy, this guy,
No,
this guy marched with Martin Luther King, and he's helping us out." You know. So
no,
maybe
you
just
were helping me out. I think I was doing community service for an
yeah, that's
arrest.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
that's right.
So anyway,
Um, so maybe just to start, can you tell me where you grew up? Or are you from the Bay originally?
Long Beach, California, Southern California. Yeah, is where I grew up.
How did you come to the Bay,
How did I come? What?
to the Bay Area?
Well, I did my graduate work at Pacific School of Religion on Holy Hill here in Berkeley.
Oh
That's what
wow.
brought me up here. I think even prior to that, I had worked with the YMCA for a few years prior to that, but that was the main thing that got me up here. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've
How
been here ever since. That was in the late '50s. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
How did you get interested in religion?
I beg your pardon?
How did you get interested in religion?
How did I get into studying religion?
Yeah.
Well, I was a good boy in Long Beach. I was kind of an organization man. I belonged to all the usual things, Cub Scouts and the church and all of that. But I was very active in the YMCA, and that's the reason I went to seminary. I wanted to have a career in the YMCA because I had been a camp counselor, stuff like that, for many years, and grew up in the Y camps. So I thought that, uh, and that's my undergraduate work was in group work education and pointing toward YMCA career, but I thought that the seminary um, would um, would um, would give a different dimension to that kind of a career.
Yeah.
So that's why I came here
Did you
to.
want to be a preacher or a
No, no, I wanted to be probably a campus Y uh, person, uh,
yeah.
which I did for a while.
Yeah.
And I did end up with about 5 years of ministry, but
Oh wow.
that was kind of a backdoor thing, which I'll tell you about as we talk more, I guess.
Well, tell me about it now. How did you so after seminary school, then is that when you went to the Y right after that?
Yes. Let's see. No, no, not immediately. As a matter of fact, I went back to Chicago where I'd done my undergraduate work, and I worked in a psych hospital for a
Mm.
while, or an institute, and actually, it was during that year that I met a lot of people. I ran a retreat center for inner city youth out in a farm outside of Chicago. And so I got acquainted with a lot of the black churches in Chicago who sent their youth groups to that retreat center. And actually, one of the people I got acquainted with during that year was publisher of Jet magazine. Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So at any rate, I kind of got uh, connected with a lot of. Mm, it wasn't long after the Emmett Till um, incident, and so there was a lot of activism that had been triggered by that in Chicago in particular. Now, what was your question?
Well,
uh,
no, that was my question.
yeah.
Is how did you get involved in civil rights, or when did that
Um,
become? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I just gave you a little bit of that in Chicago, and then I came back from after that year back in Chicago after graduate school. I was called to work with the um, California Migrant Ministry,
Mm.
which worked in farm labor camps in Central California. And that was an interesting experience. I led volunteer groups of college students that went into the farm labor camps with various activities, um, health education. We put up sheets and ran movies. This was prior to
Oh, wow.
the
Yeah.
Valdez's Campo
Yeah.
Teatro
Hmm.
Campesino, but that kind of a thing. And it was during that experience that a guy by the name of Saul Alinsky. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever heard of him
Oh, yeah.
from Chicago, and I had known of him or knew him in Chicago, and he and hmm, I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. At any rate, brought Cesar Chavez to tour some of the farm labor camps. This is prior to the start of the
Hmm.
farm labor union. So they were training him. Alinsky was training Cesar Chavez. And so I had a chance to meet both of those people before Cesar Chavez was very well known, but I did know Alinsky. And and
What was he like?
who?
Both of them.
Well, Alinsky was a shit kicker and maverick and did all sorts of um, uh, guerrilla theater
Mm.
to work on social issues and causes in Chicago and wanted to train Cesar Chavez to do those kinds of things in with the farm laborers in California. And Caesar was kind of a quiet-spoken guy compared to Alinsky, I got to say. But I got to know Caesar a little bit because from that summer when I met him, after that I was called to a church in Watts in south of Los Angeles, and we stayed in touch with the farm labor union. As a matter of fact, he called on white clergy to come and help with the original strike in Delano, and
Mm.
so people from my church in Watts came up there for that initiation of the grape strike
Oh, wow.
in Delano. Um, I, ask me some more. I've forgotten. I could go on, but
Ah,
yeah. But so you see how the trajectory of civil rights
yeah.
and activism happened. And by the way, in a kind of a predecessor to all of this was at PSR, Pacific School of Religion. Um, I studied with Howard Thurman.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Yeah.
Howard
Oh my
Thurman
God.
Howard Thurman, uh, he was back at Boston University at that time, and
Yeah.
he was a main mentor of Martin Luther King. And a book of his called Jesus and the Disinherited was a book that Martin Luther King carried with him throughout the bus boycott and his career, actually, because Howard Thurman was a big influence on him. Howard Thurman had met Gandhi, and so and also started a church over here in San Francisco called the Fellowship of All Peoples, which is still there, which was
Wow.
a non-denominational, all faiths kind of a church, and integrated, which was kind of rare in those days. So anyway, Thurman was a big influence on me,
Yeah.
and in my years of graduate study and up here in Holly Hill. Um,
So,
and I was lucky that during my seminary years was when the Beat poets were were at their height. And so I was able to study the Old Testament prophets during the daytime and sit at the feet of the Beat poets at North Beach at night. And so that was a big part of my education. That, I think that, and Howard Thurman, and a guy named Pierre de Latre, I doubt if you've ever heard of, but was a great guy who was heading the student YMCA at Cal, Stiles Hall, and subsequently um, started under my denomination. Subsequently started something over in North Beach called the Bread and Wine Mission, which was a hangout for the Beat poets.
I
And
see.
Pierre Delattre was a big influence, and he introduced me to the to Beckett, Samuel Beckett. I remember he took a group of us over to a production of Waiting for Godot, and
Wow.
he's the guy who started the um, driftwood sculptures over here on the East Bay, which were big in those years. But the
Yeah.
very first, I went with him for some of the initial putting up of those sculptures. So
Yeah.
at any rate, I guess I'm getting into all these influences
Yeah.
of Thurman and Delatra and the Beat poets, which led um, to the migrant ministry, and then after that, Watts,
Mm.
which is where I excuse me, where I say I backed into the ministry. I never wanted to be a pulpit minister, but there was a church that the white people had abandoned in Watts in the southeast Los Angeles, and the conference of the United Church of Christ wanted someone to see if anything could be done there, and I kind of turned it into a YMCA in a way, or a youth center, you know.
Mhm.
But it was also we were very active with the Congress of Racial Equality core in those years, and there were big actions over in Torrance with fair housing. A lot of our members were arrested during those actions uh, in Torrance. And one of the kids in my youth group there at the church in Watts was a guy named Jimmy Garrett, who subsequently we sent him and a woman girl from our church to the Mississippi Freedom Summer
Mm.
in '64, and then subsequently he came up here to San Francisco and began initiated the student strike to establish black
Mm.
history and black studies departments, which spread to colleges across the nation, really. but
Yeah.
that was an interesting to watch his
Yeah.
his flourishing. So at any rate, the Watts thing too was the I was there during. No one's ever heard of it anymore. It's ancient history, but there was a big what they call the Watts riot, but it was a Watts revolt in the summer of '65, which which was a huge turning point in a lot of civil rights actions, and that was quite an experience to live through that, and the descending of the National Guard and others into South LA. So there,
So that
so that's when I became ordained in the United Church of Christ, kind of by accident, like I say, instead of following the YMCA career. But
yeah.
uh,
So that was 1965.
65 was a big year because it was the year of 65 was the year that I think Malcolm X was murdered,
Mm,
and then in March of '65 was the Selma March,
mm,
which you begin by asking me that. I went to that because King, like Caesar, wanted white clergy to join after Bloody Sunday for the second march. Wanted a good mix of people, so I went back for that. And yeah, '65 was in March was the Selma March. In August was the Watts Revolt, and in fall of that year was the Delano grape strike, and I went up to
yeah.
that. So I had
Wow.
an eventful year of '65.
Yeah. Wait, George, t tell me about Selma. I mean, so I guess maybe first, um, if you're willing to share, I mean, were you scared? Were you scared to go?
Yes, yeah, I didn't know if I'd come back. Having seen the Bloody Sunday events and being called to come and march. Uh, yeah, I was scared. I was met at the airport by Andrew Young, who was King's first lieutenant, I guess you'd call him. Maybe you saw that recent documentary about him called that he did the dirty work for Martin Luther King, which was picking up people like me at the airport. But at any rate, Andrew Young subsequently became the mayor of Atlanta and ambassador to the UN, and was quite a guy. And he was minister in the same denomination as me. That's how I happened to
Mm,
be picked up by him. And he brought me to Brown Chapel uh, there in Selma, which was a main launching pad for the march, and took me around back to the kitchen and introduced me to Martin Luther King. And we shared a smoke and talked about Watts and
mm,
and of course what was the pending march and so forth. But it was a brief meeting. But
mhm,
it was interesting to meet him, of course. And I had been to his speeches in Watts and L.A. prior and all. I didn't go to the March on Washington in '63, but was tied into all that. So at any rate, um, yeah, met by Young, put up in the housing project with some locals, and was then taken to Marion, which is about a half an hour from Selma. to Marion, Alabama, where by a guy named Jim Orange. Have you ever heard that name?
No.
Jim Orange was with the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and he had led a voting registration drive in Marion. This is a small little town compared to Selma, and he was arrested during that, and and there was a march to protest his arrest, where a guy named Jimmy Lee Jackson um, was was a part of that protest and was killed by the police. And that was the thing that sparked the initial uh, Bloody Sunday march, was in protest of well, in support of the voting rights thing that Jim Orange was doing in Marion, and of course in protest of the murder of Jimmy Lee Jackson. So I just met with a small group at the church that all that was happening in Marion, but it was quite an experience to meet Jim Orange, who was a fantastic guy. I remember asking him, you know, how'd you get into this protest? And he says, you sometimes you do these actions not to change the system, but to make sure that the system doesn't change you.
Mm,
And I always thought of
mm,
that you may or may not succeed in your goals of the actions, but um, but you can fortify your own uh, um, convictions.
yeah.
Anyway, and another guy that I met at that small little gathering was Robert McAfee Brown, who was a who, along with William Sloane Coffin, in those years was encouraging draft
Mm,
people to burn their cards.
mhm,
And so that was a big clergy action of Robert McAfee Brown and William Sloane Coffin. So that
mhm,
was, and I subsequently studied with with Brown here in Berkeley.
mhm,
Okay, so that was you say tell you more about Selma. I met Martin Luther King briefly. The and Jim Orange was a treasure to meet him. And then I was on the march, but I didn't do the whole thing. After the first night, I walked the first 2 days, and then they wanted to pare the numbers down, or had to somehow, until they got to Montgomery. And so I volunteered or whatever. Watts was calling me to come back, and so after 2 days, I came back and watched the rest of the march on video, along with our congregation in my church at Watts. So that was my Selma experience. Oh, and also we were arrested one day prior to the march in protesting the Mayor Silverson, I think his name was, and police brutality. And we were all arrested and detained overnight um, in a school basement gym, and there were hundreds of us, and we had a seder that night, which which was great. And so
yeah.
that was prior to the march itself.
Wow.
Um,
George, when you came home or to Watts and saw it, I mean, how did you feel participating in it? I mean, now, I mean, my generation, we look back on that as a sort of historical moment. But
mhm.
in the moment, what did it feel like to be part of something maybe bigger than yourself like that, or how did it?
Well, it was a privilege, and it was a relief to come home alive
Yeah.
because another clergyman, Jim Reed, was killed at the start of the march, and a woman by the name of Viola Leosa was killed right after the march. Two supporters of the struggle. Uh, I'm thinking of currently Minnesota and
Yeah.
supporters of the struggle get killed, or people who want to witness it and support it are seem to be um, found dangerous
Mhm.
by the authorities. So anyway, yeah, it was a huge privilege to have been a small part of it, and
But,
yeah, um,
in your faith, what I don't know. Maybe if you're willing, can you talk a little bit about your faith and how, I mean, there's many Christians who are on the other side, you know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to,
Christian nationalists or whatever.
yeah, Christian
Yeah,
nationalists, and for you, where you found
yeah.
inspiration and strength to, potentially risk your life for people you don't necessarily know, you know. I mean, now we look at it as a I mean, it succeeded, and so there were rights that were won. But I'm very cognizant today of the courage it takes to, go protest in front of armed
Mhm,
armed paramilitary troops, and I'm moved by people talking about faith because it's more than just the moment. It's something beyond that, and I sometimes feel like we've lost faith of different kinds.
mhm. Well, um, I faith. Um, when you get into faith, I think of right beliefs and doctrines and uh, curb your uh, curb your dogma
Hmm.
kind of a thing. And I think I was always kind of anti-clerical.
Hmm.
And like I say, I didn't go to seminary to become a minister, but it was a privilege to study to study the history of faith communities and the prophets and like I say the beats and during those years. Um, I uh, a passage in the Old Testament is a kind of a mantra that I try to think of often, and it's excuse me, the prophet Micah and Amos were both anti-clerical too, and they were sickened by the festivals and the sacrifices, and they say, "We don't want all that shit. Uh, uh, all that's required is to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly." And so those uh, that motto
Hmm.
is more important than right beliefs or even thinking
Yeah.
of God, because if you strive or aspire to follow those three things, that's that's enough, you
Yeah.
know. And the I think doing kindness justice, kindness, and what was the third one? Justice, kindness, and
Humble.
walking humbly.
Yeah.
And so the kindness, I think of Kurt Vonnegut said, um, "God damn it, you got to be kind. That's what's important."
Right.
you know. And there's that, and then the walking humbly with whoever you encounter, who who is a sibling of yours and a divine creature like we all are. And as Buber said, consider that person that you're walking humbly with as a thou and not an it. And
Right.
so there's that. So I guess that's kind of the, the religious life that I try
Yeah.
to live
I mean,
and
I'm
fail at a lot. Try again, fail better, as Beckett said. But
yeah.
yeah,
You still engage in civil disobedience.
yes, I do.
Um, what inspires that? I mean, there's a lot of people who might say that they fight for justice who do not engage in civil disobedience.
Well, there are different ways that people can put their shoulder to the wheel. I think
Mhm.
that's one that I have enjoyed. I say it that way. I've enjoyed the fellowship of other people
Yeah.
engaging in it with me, and all. So the back during the um, years after Watts, I came back up here to Northern California, and I worked with Lutheran Social Services for about 10 years, and got we brought in a guy by the name of Ken Budigan who organized the emergency response network during the whole Central American protest or protests of our engagement in Central American things, and I got involved with him in a lot of civil disobedience during those years. Um, one time, I memorably for me anyway, was that I got arrested along with Daniel Ellsberg at the federal building over in San Francisco, and they took us in chains and brought us back here to the East Bay, and we spent a night in a halfway house, I guess it was. It was kind of ironic because we laughed about it ever since, because the halfway house was minimum security, and we were able to leave and go out to dinner doing time, and so at any rate, we always laughed about that. But so there was that, and then subsequently being with him in the Livermore lab protest Easter each year, or during Hiroshima Day and all.
Mhm. George, this is a very abstract question, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how do you think about freedom?
How
I
do I
mean,
think freedom? Hmm. Wow, that's a big.
yeah.
How do I think about? I'm not sure how to answer that. How do I?
Do you feel
Uh,
like in your civil disobedience, do you feel like you're fighting for freedom, or does it feel like justice and freedom comes after that?
mm, mm, well, that's kind of a theological question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is freedom? Because we're bound in many ways, and so um, uh, I certainly have been privileged to be more free than a lot of people,
Yeah.
and undeservedly so. Um, so I think of that, and I certainly want to do what I can to put my shoulder to the wheel to increase the experience of freedom for people that have been uh, oppressed and not as privileged as I accidentally um, was blessed to be. So I don't know what more to say about that, to be frank with you.
Yeah. Right now, there's so much wrong in the world, but one of the things happening is a sort of tyranny and a loss of freedom and a loss of civil rights. And I'm wondering, as someone who fought for civil rights, what you think about not just what's happening right now, but how we get out of it.
Mm.
And any thoughts you have around what to do. It's
Well, I mean, it's coming down on us as authoritarianism and the fascism and what we're experiencing, what I uh, dread um, my my grandchildren having to endure.
yeah,
There's that, and it's it's um, heartening to see some of the resistance that's happening now in Minnesota around that. And but yeah, you must resist much and obey little, and um, and it's almost. I remember reading a book. Um, an undergraduate, I think, called "They Thought They Were Free," about the Germans prior to the Nazis or during the uprising of the Nazis. And wow, it seems like we're living through that now.
yeah,
The ICE are damn near Gestapos, or even worse because they're masked. The Gestapos didn't mask themselves, and 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 they're given a free rein by our administration to kill people and to fuck them over.
yeah,
So we've got to resist. We've got to witness as people are doing, and it's a blessing in a way that we have cameras now. Although cameras, TV was a big
mm,
factor in the Vietnam ending of the Vietnam War. We saw the body bags coming back. We saw the Bloody Sunday pictures and the Birmingham pictures and all on the tube. But we it's even more available now with everyone carrying a cell phone
mm,
and and so we need to use those to witness and give and and make people see what's happening. Um, so I kind of I'm not sure. I ask your question again. Stay on target.
no,
Uh,
this it's great. Um, well, what I see when I see Minneapolis, one thing I see
mhm.
is I think it will probably happen here in Oakland.
Yeah.
And
Well, Oscar Grant was killed
yeah,
here, and it will happen here. If yeah, well, I say if I don't know if we can stop it.
yeah,
All of our actions are probably pathetic compared to the power of of, of the government, but we
Yeah.
got to do them anyway. Uh,
Right.
that's the try again, fail again, feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could come here and 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 probably will.
What I'm struck by, I guess, is, you going to Selma, and frankly, what crosses my mind is, I hope I would do that, but it's hard to leave my 2-year-olds at home, you know.
I had a child at that
Did
time.
you?
Yeah, 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 and it was hard. Um, hmm, well, like I say, we do different paths that each of us can follow to to resist.
Yeah.
And mm,
George, just to go back to something you said earlier, I have Jesus and the Disinherited on my bedside, and I've read it, and
say that again,
I have
please.
Howard Thurman's book,
Howard
Jesus and
Thurman's book.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and
Jesus and the Disinherited. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I love the book, and
Uh-huh.
I've read it, and kind of I'm trying to reread it. I'm
Hmm.
wondering what he was like as a mentor teacher, and
Well,
uh,
he was kind of a mystic,
huh,
and he he would he was very eloquent, but he was almost in a different world in a way when he'd go off on
hmm,
um, telling of spiritual experiences and that kind of a thing. Um, but he was also very eloquent on nonviolence
hmm,
and that and I think of who learned from him after all Martin Luther King's observation that violence is a descending spiral and that hate just begets more hate and that the only thing that can um, stop hate is love and it almost sounds too spiritual because we see the violence all around us and say, come on, and some of the critics of King and nonviolence have pointed that out. Um, but he was steadfast in that, and you got to admire people
hmm,
who are steadfast in their commitment to
hmm,
nonviolence because all of us have a dark side and all of us are capable of of the worst that has
yeah,
ever happened and we're capable of that and we need discipline and support and a beloved community to keep us um, as close as possible to our convictions and our aspirations. Um, anyway, yeah, Thurman was very. Uh, I'll never forget studying with him. It
yeah.
was a very and it was a small little seminar too at PSR, so I got to
Wow.
be up front with him. Yeah,
George, do you still believe in nonviolence?
I sure do. Yeah, yeah. And all of the nonviolent um, mechanisms that we have, or boycotts, strikes, um, just witnessing is a nonviolent action of taking pictures, blowing whistles. Um, uh, so nonviolence is active resistance and not simply passive laying down. And
Yeah.
so I do believe in that. And uh, as 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 you know, I uh, for the last 15 years, I've gone to that um, Peace March in Nevada from Las Vegas to the atomic testing site. And halfway through, we stop at the Creech Air Force Base. We are involved in nonviolence and civil disobedience at both Creech and the atomic testing site. It's like voices crying in the wilderness, and it's a small little group, but it's as Abraham Heschel said about walking in Selma, you're praying with your feet
Right.
during that, and I don't think it's useless, but it's it probably does seem so to other people. And after all, and by the way, all of ICE and Gaza and and creeping fascism, terrible as they all are, and they are. There's two swords hanging over our heads by a small thread, as I think Kennedy said. One is a nuclear threat, and the other is environmental catastrophe. And those two, and so that's what this walk in the desert each year is a way of praying with my feet and addressing that possible
Yeah.
possible um, catastrophic events that I shudder to think of my the future of your kid and my six grandkids and of course every human race. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, and so nonviolent and civil disobedient actions I do believe in, but I know that a lot of our actions will not see the victory in our lifetime. I think Niebuhr pointed that out, that good uh, intentions and our uh, will not be realized in our own lifetime. And the arc that leads to justice is a long, long arc.
Yeah.
But we got to put our shoulders to that and pass the flame and baton of that dream to the next generation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm struck, George, that a lot of the books you've mentioned are my favorite. So like
mm,
I and Thou,
mm,
the
mm,
Children of Light, Children of Dark by Niebuhr, or Man in
mm.
Immoral Society by Niebuhr.
Moral Man and Immoral Society. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are really big
Um,
influences.
yeah. But somehow, sometimes I feel a little out of my generation liking those books.
Yeah, no, they were big in my day. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Tillich and Niebuhr and Buber
Yeah.
were the big.
I mean, what those books in particular circle is theology of some kind, and um, I guess I'm struck even in the anti-clerical way right now when things are so dark, there is kind of a need for theological faith or hope, maybe not religious, but just sort of like
Mhm,
a higher power. Um,
mhm,
and when I think to the civil rights, part of what's so inspiring to me is it seems that nonviolence is faith in human conscience. That if you resist nonviolently, the majority of people will recognize a deeper moral truth that this is wrong and that this needs to stop. Um,
mhm,
and that's quite an act of faith. I mean, and I don't know if what you think right now about, I guess that's what I was trying to ask earlier about faith, not in the dogmatic way, but just
mhm,
in the like, what's beyond just I mean, like you said, like praying with your feet, even
Hmm.
that is a little bit different than just the political, you know. And I guess for you, just you know, the what has kept you tethered to the Christian idea, or the Christian framework, or you know, like you could choose another religion, you could choose other things, and it seems like that has been a thread for you in your life. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I aspire to be a follower of Jesus,
Yeah.
um, but I don't know so much about the word Christ or even the word God, to be
Hmm.
frank with you.
Yeah.
Um, they refer to mysteries,
Right.
I think, and we do have to um, honor
Yeah.
the mystery in our life. Um, the But I guess I'm more comfortable and feel more fulfilled and in 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 actions than in beliefs. Uh, your man Thurman, you're reading. I don't know if it's in that book, but he talks about uh, don't ask what the world needs.
Yeah.
Ask what makes you come alive, and that's what the world needs are
Yeah.
people fully alive, and that so and I I I feel alive when I'm involved in resistance,
Mhm.
and in working toward justice. I feel alive in theater,
Yeah.
which has been a thread which we haven't talked too much about, but in that, and I am very in admiration of what you've put together with the Oakland Theater Project. And by the way, you're just a few blocks from the West Oakland Live, which I was the director of for a while over there
No way. Wow.
in 35th.
Yeah.
But you're right there in it, and um, and your selection of theater pieces are a real inspiration. So
George, maybe to close, can you share how you got into theater, or how, like, the thread of theater? Did it start with the Beat Poets and then?
probably the Beat Poets, and actually a few years later, I played the role of Ferlinghetti in a play called Beat, which which we put together with passages from all the Beat Poets. So there's that. But let's see. In seminary, I acted in a couple of things. Uh, W.H. Auden's For the Time Being. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's a
No.
great piece. It's a long poem. And also No Exit.
Oh,
That
yeah.
we did at PSR. So there was that. The In Watts, I got connected with Frank Silvera, who started something called the Theater of All Being over in West Hollywood, and we
Mm,
took our congregation to most of his plays. He did Fugard and James Baldwin. He did a great production of the Amen Corner with B.
mhm,
Richards. There's that, and by the way, Frank Silvera came down to our church, and we toured a lot of the storefront churches in Watts during the No on 14, which was a fair housing um, proposition. So there, there's theater and activism
Yeah.
is what I'm getting at there. I think, and at any rate, that the defeat of Proposition 14 was what triggered the Watts Revolt and the subsequently. Um, okay, so there was that, and then when I was at the uh, West Oakland YMCA, we did a production of Slave Ship by Leroy Jones.
Mhm.
Subsequently, what's his name now?
Mary Baraka.
Mary Baraka. But anyway, there was that. Let's see. Then, as my kids got older, I pushed them into theater and got involved in some stuff with the Young Conservatory at ACT, and they pull in parents uh, to play roles every now and then in the kids' productions. So I was pulled in there. In fact, is Lisa, what was her last name? Taught at Cal with you, I think. Lise
Oh,
Bruno. Lise
I don't know.
Bruno. No. Come to me. Anyway, so there was that, and then and so as I say, I pushed my kids into theater, and then when they grew up, there was no one else to push except myself. And in retirement, I studied with Gene Sheldon and was in the initial season with Shotgun um, and all of that.
And then I found
And you found me, yeah. It was a real privilege to be in your play.
oh,
Uh,
George. It was, yeah.
Exodus to Eden, talk about an Old Testament,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, theater is very important. My daughter um, is now bigwig at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, and
I didn't
so
know that.
she followed the theater path too,
Wow.
and was a dancer and now arts administrator. And I think she might she's keeping her fingers crossed for something with
Mm.
Madani in the cultural commissioner.
Yeah, yeah. That's great.
Anyway, so theater is another form of resistance and nonviolent
Hmm.
action.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Well, George, let's stop there. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I just to say it to anyone who watches or listens, thank you for doing this with me. It's really wonderful to hear your story because I'd heard bits and pieces, but I hadn't gotten to hear the whole thing.
mm,
It's really inspiring. So,
well, you're inspiring, and thank you for letting me ramble on. I just turned 90, and you got to watch out
oh, George,
because
congratulations!
us geezers will talk on and on
Happy birthday.
about our wonderful life. So
Uh,
thanks for indulging me.
Oh, George, it's a pleasure. All right, everyone, check out our next video.